Hello there, vinyl community and YouTube. It's time again to do some update on what's been happening during the past month of May. It has been a really good month for records, and I will show a whole bunch of vinyls. And you might think that I've been spending my entire salary on records when you see all the stuff that I have bought. But I've got them pretty for a very low price, so I'm very satisfied with the month of May. So I'm going to try to speed it up a bit so it won't be a 3-hour long video. I want to start Swedish and wrap it up Swedish. So we'll start with CDs, 4 CDs that are all Swedish. This one you might recognize. This is Marie Fredriksson from Roxette and her solo album, The Change. Her, if I'm not wrong, only solo album in English. This one is from 2004 and made right after, I think, or during her recovery from her breast cancer. And the lyrics, of course, is colored by her thoughts when she had the breast cancer. I listened to this one when it was released on the record store that we had, and I was very disappointed because I felt that it was not the best Marie Fredriksson album. I'm going to give it another chance, mainly because I want this to complete my Marie Fredriksson collection. And hopefully I will have a new, I will see it in another way that I did back then. This one is very interesting. It's one of the few times where I bought an album with a band that is from our time, these past years. It's a Swedish band called Fibes O Fibes. This band is famous because they are sounding so much 80s in their production, and they do it in a little more modern way, but it sounds very much 80s. And they love the 80s. They express their love for the 80s music, and they also have the good taste to invite Kim Wilde to do a duet with them on their hit single Run to You. So it's a very interesting album. Going to be very interesting to listen to it if it is so great that I hope that it is. Swedish Disco King, Eurodisco King, E-Type, and his album The Explorer. And last summer I talked about a Swedish dance artist that I liked, that unfortunately passed away, and it was Christian Falk, and now I was able to find his most famous album from 1999, Quel Bordel, and this is really, I haven't listened to it, but the parts I've listened to it sounds very funky, very awesome, great, not too far away from Jamiroquai. And we have some really great guest vocalists here. We're having Nene Cherry, we're having Titiyo and Robin doing guest vocals here. So this is going to be very interesting to listen to. Going to a 7-inch, it was only 4 of them, not much at all. Here we have Jackson Browne, Lawyers in Love from 1982. We have very interesting here. This is Spanish artist Samantha and her original version of Y Viva España. In Sweden, this one is more famous by Swedish schlager singer Sylvia Vrethammar, cult classic. But this one is the original in Spanish, so it's fun to have the original version of a in Sweden famous song. 2 singles by Gilbert O'Sullivan, the oldest one from 73, Oh Baby. And here is Get Down. As I say, on the other side of this single, it is, as I said, good, you can see a good company. Get Down, and on the other side, A Very Extraordinary Sort of Girl from 1974, my birth year. This one is really good. Really great 70s pop music. I think hopefully I will get to show an entire album with Gilbert O'Sullivan soon. Going to full-length vinyl, and now we have a lot to show here. Starting off with some Synthpop. I have sorting them up a little bit in genre order. 80s Synthpop. Not the best sleeve maybe, but this album I got very interested in. Giorgio Moroder featuring Joe Esposito, Solitary Man from 1984. I wasn't all that interested in it first one, but then I saw it again and I listened to it on YouTube to some parts of it, and I felt like this is actually really well made 80s synthpop and classic Giorgio Moroder. So I bought it, and it's going to be very interesting to listen to it, to the entire album. Now to a band, a British synthpop band that I think they're British. Maybe I'm wrong, but a synthpop band nonetheless, from the early 80s that one of the few that wasn't all too fond of from the beginning. I thought the melodies wasn't all that interesting. I had one album with them, their self-titled, and I gave that away because I felt it wasn't the best album. But then I heard good words about this band. I listened to some songs at YouTube from other albums, and I felt like this wasn't bad at all. This was pretty good. So when I saw a whole bunch of records with this band, I took a chance and gave this band a second chance. Talking about Classics Nouveau, and this is the album from 1981 called Night People. Gatefold. And this is their album La Vérité from 1982. And finally, the album that I gave away and that I'm now going to give a second chance, actually. Their self-titled album from also 1981. I think this time it will be pretty interesting. Coming to some soul records now. Been a great month for soul music. This is Sugar Hill Gang, one of the first rap group ever, and their self-titled album from 1979, consisting, of course, the single Rappers Reprised. And about 9 and 10 years later, Stevie Wonder made this one, Characters. Stevie Wonder always welcome in my collection. This consists some really great tracks. His duet with Michael Jackson, Get It, and his main single Skeletons, also a great one. So it's going to be very interesting. Really fine quality on that album also. Back to the 70s, to 1979, and Betty Wright and the album Traveling in the Circle. I listened to this one and it's really good, really well made, really well produced 70s soul music. Gotta wonder, how did they make this dress? This dress is, I'm not interested in clothes and or fashion also, but this dress is really something special. I'm always happy when I go to a second-hand store and being able to find records from Philadelphia International Records, some real genuine Philly soul. And this was the case with this one, The 3 Degrees, with the album With Love from 1975. Also listen to this one. This is a really well made and relaxing 70s soul album. Classic Philly soul with strings and really laid back, and some parts also really funky. I really like this album very much. I'm starting to have 3 Degrees as some of my absolute favorite 70s soul bands. Coming to an album that might be a candidate in some form to the list of top findings of the year soon when New Year's Eve arrives. Because this one I was so satisfied with. This is Detroit Spinners, or The Spinners, with the album Love Trippin', consisting their major hits, Working My Way Back to You, Girl. Great song, and this album is so great. Yet another album that stands with one leg in the 70s, with the 70s disco soul style, and the other one in a newer style in the 80s, because this one is made in 79, released in 1980, and also in one leg in the 80s with the synthesizers style also. And this one is very funky, very groovy, amazing ballads. They sing so well together here, and this is a highly recommended soul album. If you like real soul music from 70s and 80s, this is one of the best examples. More soul. I showed the Chaka Khan album that I bought in Stockholm that I thought was the first time that Arif Mardin was working together with Chaka Khan. Boy, was I wrong. All of a sudden, that album was from 1981, all of a sudden I'm finding this one from 1980, Naughty, that also is produced by Arif Mardin. This might be one of the first albums that she released after a break with the Rufus. I may making a fool out of myself again, but now I think this might be one of the first times where she worked with Arif Mardin, who would produce her through most of the 80s. I haven't listened to this one yet, but I am a huge fan of Chaka Khan, so this one I have high expectations on. More soul. I had no idea what this band was before I bought this one. But I listened to a part of it on YouTube and I felt like, well, this wasn't as bad at all, actually. This was really funky and good. So it's going to be very interesting to listen to the entire album by the band Slave and their self-titled album from 1977. Not the most interesting sleeve, but still, it is funky and hopefully great album. And finally, we're having here Melba Moore and the album This Is It, yet another soul classic. I listened to this one and it's a really good album, maybe not the strongest hit melodies, with the exception from This Is It, but still it's very well made, she sings good and it's really well produced. So this is a really great soul album from 1976. Great month for 70s soul music. And now finally when it comes to soul, this stands in one leg of soul and one leg on jazz, and I am listening to a quick peek of this one. I've listened to the album entire yet, but I listened to quick peeks of it and it sounds really funky and good. This is Quincy Jones and I Heard That from 1976, I think. And this is a very interesting record. It's going to be so interesting to be spinning this one. And we're having musicians here. We have a whole lot of interesting names here. George Duke we have here, Herbie Hancock. We have Billy Preston. We have Toots Thielemans, Ray Brown, Stanley Clarke. We have Grady Tate, Don Elliott, Milt Jackson, Stevie Wonder, and Cad Anderson. As you hear, this is a total mix of soul artists, funk artists, and jazz artists that is doing this with Quincy Jones. Double album, Very, very interesting. And Quincy Jones, with a lot of jazz musicians. With that, we have stepped into some jazz albums, even though this one may be more easy listening than jazz. It's my fascination and my love for Hammond organ music that made me buy this one, even though the sleeve is not perfect at all. This is Hammond Hits a Go-Go with the K. Webb Orchestra. And gotta wonder, this sleeve actually, what were they thinking when they were thinking of things to paint on this woman? But it's the 70s. What would the 70s be without a little weirdo album covers? Not all that much jazz this month. This is Jerry Newhouse presents Benny Goodman, his orchestra, trio and quartet, 1938 to 1939. I have had the slightest idea who Jerry Newhouse was before I bought this one. But I checked out he is some kind of a collector and a jazz historian. He knows a lot about jazz. And Fantastic had obviously made him put his name on the record with Benny Goodman, who was one of his biggest favorites. And this one contains live recordings from the show called from their Camel Caravan shows, and it's great shows. Even though I'm not too fond of the cigarette commercials, but it's a great show. And this contains songs, live recordings from that show, and it mixes. I've been listening to album 1 of this double album, and it mixes trio recordings, quartet recordings and big band recordings very much, and it's very interesting, very interesting. I'm more fond of full shows, but it's great music nonetheless. Now some mixed music. Here is Michael McDonald and his album If That's What It Takes from 1982. Not the soul style of Michael McDonald's, more popular style, but still it is very relaxing and very great. He sings good as always. Maybe I would have wanted the production to be a little bit heavier, with maybe some synthesizer more. But still it is very relaxing, and I really think this is a great one, so it will definitely be in the collection. Not all that much fan of reggae, but UB40 have done some really great songs, so I bought this one, the best of UB40. UB40 might be one of these bands where I think that a collection might be enough. But this one is made in 1987, so it is more earlier UB40, and it contains one of the best songs that I think with UB40, Don't Break My Heart. Really great reggae song. And I also like the song Sing Our Own Song, also here, but we have also If It Happens Again, we have I Got You Babe, that he did with Chrissy Hind, and also Red Wine, a song that I think is totally overplayed and that I wasn't too fond of from the begin with. So, but still, it will be interesting collection nonetheless. A couple of records that I bought today. I was so happy when I was at a second-hand store today and found another album with Sniffin' the Tears, Ride Blue Divide from 1982. I've shown 2 Sniffin' the Tears albums before, and those one are fantastic and splendid, great music. So hopefully this one will be just as good. Finally, a trio of Swedish vinyl albums. This one also bought today. Pop singer and singer-songwriter Peter Lundblad with the album Lugn Extas, Calm Ecstasy. And Peter Lundblad here in Sweden is famous for a song called Ta mig till havet, Take Me to the Ocean. Has more or less become a national Swedish summer anthem. This is not album with that song. This is, I think, the album before that, containing a song called Jag brinner, I'm on fire. That is, I have huge childhood memories from the early 80s. So I was very interested when I found the album from that song. It was very interesting. Yeah, having here Swedish balladeer, poetry singer Carl Anton, famous for having TV shows in Sweden called Carl Anton i Vita bergen. This is an album that he calls En visa till dig för mig, a song from me to you. He has written all of these ballads and poet songs himself, and he sings them to Anders Dahl's orchestra, and this is very much Swedish summer, very much little folk music and Swedish ballads. So this is a very, very relaxing and great album. And finally, Swedish jazz. Normally when Swedish jazz musicians, or when jazz overall, do some experimenting, I'm not all that interested in it. But this is a really great exception. I haven't listened to the entire album, but I listened to quick peeks of it, and I got very interested in it, especially since it contains Hammond organ. Bernt Egerblad plays the organ with a swing, and some little experimenting jazz music, but it sounds very, very interesting and very, very well made. So it's going to be very interesting. Listen to this one. Bernt Egerblad, normally a pianist who had been having television shows here in Sweden also. Take a look at this. Red Mitchell, the famous American bass player on bass. He lived in Sweden for a couple of years, so he played with a lot of Swedish musicians. So with that, I hope that you have enjoyed my findings during May. Hopefully June, the start of the summer, will be just as good. And I've said a couple of times now that I'm going to do a review of what I've been spinning lately, and I think definitely that the next video I will make is not something other comes between, will be a little mix of reviews from what I've been listening to lately. So with that, I hope that you're having a really nice weekend. Till we see you next time, and so long.